I've always thought working the overnight shift at a fast food place wasn't scary. It was just boring. That's what I used to tell myself when I clocked in at 10 p.m., threw on the headset, and stared at a mostly empty lobby for the next 8 hours. At worst, it was lonely. At best, easy money. But after what happened that night, I'll never think of night shifts the same way again. It was a Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. I honestly don't remember anymore. The week had bled together into one long stretch of deep fryer grease and fluorescent buzzing. We were open 24/7, but after midnight, business slowed to almost nothing. Drunk stragglers from the nearby bars, the occasional trucker, maybe a cop or two who wanted coffee, but by 2 a.m., the place was dead quiet. That night, I was the only one in the front. My manager was buried in the back office doing paperwork, and the cook was smoking out by the dumpsters, like usual. I was leaning on the counter, fighting the weight of my eyelids, when the front door slid open with a dull hiss. I looked up, expecting maybe some late-night college kids or a group of stragglers looking for fries. Instead, it was just one man. He walked in slowly, like he wasn't in any hurry at all. Tall, thin, pale. He had on a gray coat that looked damp, like he'd been standing in the rain, but it hadn't rained that night. His hair was slicked back, thinning on top. Carried nothing. No phone, no wallet in his hands, no car keys. He didn't approach the counter. He didn't even glance at the menu. He just sat down in the booth directly facing me across the lobby, sat perfectly straight, hands folded on the table, eyes locked on me. At first, I laughed under my breath. Maybe he was just waiting for someone. Maybe he'd order in a second. I gave him a few minutes, wiping down the counter to give him space. But when I glanced back, he hadn't moved an inch. 5 minutes passed, 10, 15. He just sat there, staring. Finally, I called over. "Hey man, you want anything tonight?" No answer, just that same unblinking stare. I shifted awkwardly. "We're open all night, but if you're not ordering, you can't just hang out." Slowly, almost too slowly, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a thin, knowing curl of his lips, like he just realized something I hadn't. Then he finally spoke, his voice low and flat, but somehow carrying across the whole empty restaurant. "I already ate." That was all. The way he said it, though, made my stomach tighten, like he wasn't talking about burgers or fries, like he was talking about something else entirely. I told myself I was overthinking it. Weird people come through at night all the time. I buried myself by filling sauce cups, checking the fry timers, counting change in the drawer. But every time I looked up, he was still there, still smiling faintly. An hour passed, then 2. At some point, I noticed something strange. The trash can by the drink station was nearly overflowing with wrappers, bags, empty cups, and trays. But I hadn't served a single order. I pulled the bag out, frowning. The food wrappers weren't even from our store. They didn't look right, greasy, stained, some of them torn and crumpled like they'd been shoved down a throat instead of eaten normally. I carried the bag out back, muttering to myself, trying not to think about it. But when I came back in, the man was still there, and his smile had widened. By 4 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I marched over to his booth, slamming my palm on the table. "Listen, you can't just sit here all night, all right? If you're not going to order, you gotta go." He tilted his head up at me. His eyes, I still see them sometimes when I close mine. They look so hungry. Not in the way a tired drunk looks at a burger, but hollow, starving, desperate, like staring down a bottomless pit. "You served me already," he whispered. My throat went dry. No, I didn't." He leaned in closer, voice sharp now, almost gleeful. "Yes, you did." I stumbled back from the booth, nearly tripping over my own feet. I rushed behind the counter, heart hammering in my chest. I tried to distract myself, grabbing the headset and pretending to check the drive-thru system, anything to break the tension. But when I glanced up again, the booth was empty. Not the sound of the doors opening, no footsteps, no car in the lot. He was just gone. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I'd imagined it. But then, I looked at the trash can again, the one I just emptied. It was full, overflowing with wrappers and trays, smeared with ketchup, half-eaten burgers, empty fry boxes, all of it piled high, like dozens of people had just finished eating. and right in the top of the heap was a tray. My name tag, the one I'd lost a week ago, was stuck to it, greasy and stained. I quit the next morning and never went back. I don't know who or what that man was, but sometimes when I'm driving late at night, I catch myself glancing at the glow of fast food signs along the road, and I wonder if he's sitting inside, staring, waiting for the next tired cashier to notice the trash can filling up behind them. I've worked plenty of closing shifts at fast food joints before, and they all blur together the same way. The hiss of the fryers winding down, the mop bucket sloshing on tile, the last of the state fries scraped into the trash. You clean, you clock out, you go home smelling like grease and burnt oil. But that night, the night we got locked in, still plays in my head every time I pass a drive-thru window. It was just 4 of us, me, our manager Carlos, and 2 other crew members, Jen and Marcus. It was a Sunday night, technically Monday morning, creeping toward 2 a.m. when the last car left the drive-thru. The neon sign buzzed outside, humming against the empty lot. The place felt like a fishbowl, all fluorescent lights and glass walls, with the parking lot stretching out black and hollow beyond. We were dead tired, joking half-heartedly while we cleaned. Jen mopped the lobby. Marcus scrubbed down the grill. I was refilling sauce pumps and sweeping crumbs from the fry station. Carlos, as usual, stayed glued to the back office computer, watching the cameras more than he watched us. By 2:30, everything was spotless. We clocked out one by one and headed for the front doors. That's when we realized we weren't leaving. The automatic locks clicked at 2 a.m. every night. The system was set that way. Doors stayed shut until 6 when the breakfast shift came in, but we always had an override key to unlock them early. Carlos jammed the key into the slot, twisted and pulled. Nothing. The doors didn't budge. He swore under his breath and tried again. Still nothing. I laughed nervously. I guess the lock's dead. He shook his head. Can't be. It's all electronic, tied into the store timer. That should have comforted me, but it didn't. The glass reflected our faces back at us, pale and tired under the buzzing lights. 4 people staring at a world we suddenly weren't allowed to re-enter. At first, we brushed it off. Carlos said we just waited out a few minutes, then try again. He went to call maintenance, but the store phone gave nothing but static. His cell had no signal inside. None of ours did. That was when I started to feel the air change. Like the building itself, we knew we weren't supposed to leave. Around 3 a.m., it started. Marcus was wiping down the counter when the order screen lit up. 2 double cheeseburgers, large fries, vanilla shake. The text scrolled across bright green, same as always, except none of us had touched the register. Carlos frowned. Probably a glitch. I'll reboot the system. But before he could move, the receipt printer whirred and spat out the order of the ticket. We all froze. The drive-thru speaker crackled to life, and a voice, low, hollow, male, "Number 173, ready for pickup." The sound wasn't coming from the headset. It was coming from the counter speaker, the one we used to call out orders. Jen dropped her mop. "Did you hear that?" I nodded, throat dry. Marcus just backed away from the register, like it might bite him. Carlos tried to act tough. "System's bugging out, nobody panic." But his voice shook. At 3:30, another order popped up. "Kids meal, apple slices, chocolate milk." The printer spat again. And again the voice, "Number 174, ready for pickup." We all stared at the counter. No one moved. The fryers were off, the grills were cold. There was no food, but the speaker kept repeating it, louder each time, until Jen covered her ears and begged Carlos to shut it off. He yanked wires from the terminal. Sparks flickered. The screen went black. We thought that was the end of it. But then, the lobby bell dinged. The one that goes off when a customer walks inside. We whipped around. The lobby was empty. The chairs were still flipped onto tables. Floor still damp from Jen's mop. And yet, footsteps echoed across the tile. Slow, heavy, like boots dragging. "Number 173, the voice whispered again. This time, not from the counter speaker. This time, it came from the empty lobby, and it sounded angry. Jen bolted for the back, sobbing. Marcus followed. I stood frozen at the counter, staring at the glass doors. For half a second, I swore I saw shapes outside, dark figures in the lot, pressed up against the glass, watching. But when I blinked, nothing was there. Carlos grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. Back, now! We slammed ourselves into the office, shutting the door. Jen rocked in the corner, muttering, I'm not staying here, I'm not staying here. Marcus kept pulling at the locked back door, but it rattled uselessly. The monitors flickered to static. They came back on. And there they were. Figures, dozens of them, standing in the lobby, all in line. Blank faces, gray clothes, unmoving, waiting. The counter speaker hissed again. Order up. We lasted until nearly 5 a.m., huddled in the office, listening to phantom orders print, the speaker calling out numbers that didn't exist. Every so often, the sound of trays sliding across counters, cups being set down, wrappers tearing. But there was no food, no customers, just the sound of eating in the empty restaurant. And the smell, grease, sour and old like food left to rot. It seeped under the office door until I gagged. When 6 a.m. finally came, the doors unlocked with a soft click, just like nothing had ever been wrong. The lobby was spotless. No footprints, no wrappers, no tickets, except for one tray sitting on the counter. On it was a receipt. Order number 177, 4 meals, paid. I quit that same day. Sometimes, though, I still dream of the order screen flickering to life, calling my name, telling me my number is ready. And when I wake, I swear I can smell that old grease again. Working the late night shift in fast food feels like existing in another world. By the time midnight rolls around, the customers who come through are either drunk, exhausted, or both. The kitchen hums quieter, the lobby stays dark, and most of the time the only signs of life are headlights rolling up to the drive-thru speaker. But some nights, it isn't just cars pulling through. It was a little after 1 a.m. on a Thursday when I heard the headset beep. I leaned against the counter, tapping my pen against the order pad, waiting for the slurred voice of some college kid asking for extra nuggets. Instead, what came through was off. Good evening. I'd like 2 triple cheeseburgers, no onions, 3 large fries, extra salt, 1 chocolate shake, 2 apple pies, a grilled chicken sandwich, no lettuce, and a kid's meal, 4-piece nuggets with chocolate milk. The voice was precise and sharp, almost mechanical, every word measured, with no pauses, no stumbles, not drunk, not tired, just weird. I pressed the button. Sure. That's 2 triple cheeseburgers, 3 large fries, 1 chocolate shake, 2 pies, 1 grilled chicken, no lettuce, and a kid's meal, right? Silence. Then, just an evenly, correct. I glanced out the window. Sure enough, headlights glowed by the speaker box. A dark sedan sat there, engine idling. Pull up to the first window, I said, voice cracking a little. The car rolled forward smoothly, but when it reached the window, there was no one inside. At first, I thought I was losing it. The car was there, plain as day. Old, maybe early 2000s. Interior lit faintly by the dashboard glow. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat, empty too. But in the back, a child's car seat buckled in, straps tight, as if holding something invisible. Wrappers littered the floor, crumpled cups and fry boxes scattered everywhere. I leaned in, peering closer. Hello? No answer. The car idled, rumbling gently, exhaust spilling into the cold night air. My headset crackled. Window 1, please. The voice was inside my ear, but it didn't come from the car. It came from the headset, like someone still at the speaker box, even though the car had moved. I slammed the window shut, heart pounding. I backed away from the counter, trying to laugh it off, telling myself maybe it was some prank, some kid with a remote mic messing with me. But then the car rolled forward. Not quickly, not like a getaway, slowly, like it was just following the lane, easing past the second window. Then it pulled around the corner and disappeared into the night. No taillights, no sound, just gone. The next night, I told myself I'd imagined it, but exactly at 1:12 a.m., the headset beeped again. Good evening. I'd like 2 triple cheeseburgers, no onions, 3 large fries, extra salts, 1 chocolate shake. Same voice, same exact order, word for word. And when the car rolled to the window, same sedan, same wrappers, same empty driver's seat. Same car seat buckled. This happened every night after. The same time, the same order, the same car. Sometimes I thought I saw shapes in the windows. Not people exactly, just impressions. A shadow where the face should be. A ripple where there was no movement. I stopped leaning out to look. On the sixth night, my manager stayed late to help with inventory. I told him about it, embarrassed, expecting him to laugh. But when the headset beeped, his face went pale. He listened, lips tightening, as the monotone voice recited the order. He didn't say a word, just motioned for me to follow as he walked to the back door. We stepped outside into the night air, hiding behind the dumpster, peering at the drive-thru lane. Sure enough, headlights pulled up to the speaker box. A dark sedan, windows fogged, but there was no driver. And the voice still came through the headset. "Window 1, please." The manager didn't wait to see more. He dragged me back inside, slammed the door, and told me, never open the window when that car pulls up. I asked him why. He said nothing, just shook his head, but I saw the way his hands trembled. Finally, he muttered, "When I was a kid, a family died in a wreck near here. Husband, wife, little girl. They were on their way to this restaurant. Witnesses said the last thing the driver did before he fell asleep at the wheel was read the order off the speaker." I swallowed hard. What? What was the order? He didn't answer. He didn't have to because I already knew. It's been months since then. I quit not long after. But I still can't drive past that restaurant without staring at the drive-thru. Some nights, if you're there around 1 a.m., you'll see it. A dark sedan rolling silently through the lane. The smell of fries hanging in the air. And if you listen closely, you'll hear a calm, flat voice repeating its order over and over again, still waiting for pickup. I've always hated the walk-in freezer. Most people who've worked in fast food or grocery stores probably get what I mean. It's too cold, too quiet, too easy to imagine the heavy doors slamming shut behind you. But my fear of that freezer turned into something worse than claustrophobia, because I know that something else was in there. I've been working at the restaurant for about 6 months, mostly on closing shifts. The pay was trash, but I was saving for school, so I put up with the grease burns, the stale fryer smell that clung to my clothes, and the endless mop water. The first time I noticed something off about the freezer was when I helped unload a delivery truck. Normally, the boxes had bright red supplier logos stamped on them, meat companies, frozen goods, soda brands, but tucked between them were 3 plain brown boxes, unlabeled except for strange black markings on the sides. They weren't words, not English anyway. They looked more like runes, jagged lines carved into the cardboard. When I asked the delivery guy about them, he just shrugged. "Look, I just drop off what's on the truck, man." My manager snapped at me when I brought it up. "Stop wasting time. Stock the freezer." So I did. But even with gloves on, I swore the boxes felt warm to the touch. That night, while I was putting away a bag of frozen fries, I heard it. Knocks. I froze. It came from the back corner, behind the stacks of meat boxes. I held still, listening. The hum of the fans filled the silence, my own breath fogging in front of me. Then again, more knocking. This time it was louder, like something trying to get out. I bolted, nearly slipping on the frosted floor, and didn't stop running until I was back in the kitchen. When I told Jen, one of the line cooks, she just gave me a look. "You heard it too?" That was when I found out I wasn't the only one. Everyone had stories. Marcus swore he heard voices whispering inside when he went to grab patties. Jen said she'd opened one of the strange boxes once and found meat that didn't look like beef or chicken, gray, veiny, almost human in shape. And no matter how much product we went through, the freezer never looked empty. The boxes just kept showing up. I told myself it was stress or a prank, that we were all just losing it from working nights. But a week later, I had to do a full freezer restock alone. I stacked boxes against the metal shelves, shivering, teeth chattering. The air felt heavier than usual, pressing on my chest. And then I heard it, not knocking this time, scratching, from inside one of the rune-marked boxes. Slow, dragging scratches, like nails on a chalkboard. I backed away, heart hammering. The scratching stopped. Then, the box shifted. It moved itself once again. Then, like something was struggling inside, Frost dusted down from the top of the stack. I nearly screamed. And then, a muffled voice, faint, garbled, but unmistakable. "Help me." I ran, slammed the freezer door shut behind me, chest heaving, hands shaking so bad, I dropped my headset. My manager caught me, furious. "What is your problem?" I stammered about the voice, about the box moving. He just stared at me, expression flat. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You open those boxes, you're fired. Understand?" "No, don't worry. You're imagining it. Just don't open them." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the cardboard shifting, heard the muffled plea. The next shift, I checked the trash bins out back. Normally after unpacking, we threw out loads of flattened boxes, but those rune-marked ones, never in the pile. I asked Marcus about it. "They don't get thrown out," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked around, lowered his voice. "The manager burns them, takes them out back after close, won't let anyone watch." By then, I knew I had to see for myself. The next delivery came 2 nights later. Same truck, same normal boxes, and 3 rune-marked ones. They were stacked in the back of the freezer, tucked away like always. I waited until the kitchen was empty. Everyone else was cleaning or on break. Then I grabbed a box cutter, stepped into the freezer, and shut the door behind me. The cold bit my skin as I knelt by the box. The markings seemed darker up close, almost burned into the cardboard. Hands trembling, I sliced the tape and pulled it open. At first, it looked like raw meat. Slabs of gray flesh stacked inside, slick and veiny. But then, one of them twitched. I stumbled back, another twitch, and then, an eye. Wedged in the folds of the flesh, wide open, bloodshot, staring straight at me. It blinked, and the whole box began to move. The knocking erupted again, not just from that box, but all of them. A chorus of fists pounding from inside the cardboard, muffled voices screaming, begging, sobbing. "Let us out, please, it hurts." I dropped the cutter and ran, slamming into the freezer door, fumbling at the latch until it finally gave way. I didn't stop until I was outside in the alley, heaving into the cold night air. I quit the next morning and never went back. But sometimes when I drive past a loading dock, I swear I see them, brown boxes stacked high, marked with those same black runes. Because when the wind dies and the night gets quiet enough, I hear it, that same knocking sound. Most people think closing a fast food place is easy. Customers are gone, everything's quiet. You just clean up and clock out. That's what my friends always said when I complained about it. But there's a difference between being in a restaurant when it's alive, when fryers hiss, kids scream in the lobby, and the drive-thru is backed up, and being there when it's dead. At night, when the doors are locked and the lights hum too loudly, the place doesn't feel like a restaurant anymore. It feels like a tomb someone forgot to seal. And the worst part of all was always the back hallway. The hallway stretched narrow and dim between the kitchen and the staff bathroom. It was nothing special, just a strip of tile and a flickering fluorescent bulb overhead. But no one liked going down there after hours. Every closer had the same story. You'd be alone, mop in hand, and you'd hear footsteps. Not echoes, not creaks, actual footsteps. They'd follow you when you moved, stop when you stopped. Sometimes you'd hear breathing too, ragged and close. We used to laugh about it during daylight, making jokes about the hallway ghost. But when it was your turn to mop at 2 a.m., there was no laughing. That night, it was my turn. We were short-staffed, so closing dragged. By the time we locked the lobby doors, I was already dead on my feet. The fryers hissed their last and went quiet. The grill popped as Jake scraped it down with his spatula. Jennifer banged trays around while she scrubbed the soda fountain nozzles. The manager, James, pretended to check inventory in the office, which really meant scrolling through his phone while the rest of us did the work. The place smelled like it always did at night. Burnt oil, sour mop water, bleach, and something sweet that never seemed to leave the air, like syrup or melted ice cream ground into the tile. I dragged the mop bucket into the kitchen and stared down the hallway. The buzzing fluorescent tube lit it just enough to see the end. The bathroom door, a faded green with a dent where someone had once kicked it. I sighed, dunked the mop, and got started. The hallway was colder than the kitchen, always had been. No vents, no airflow, Just that stale, closed-in chill that raised goosebumps on my arms. The mop swished across the tile, leaving a wet sheen behind. My shoes squeaked with each step. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. I froze. Mop, mid-swipe. The sound had come from behind me, closer to the kitchen. I turned. The hallway was empty, the bucket sitting where I'd left it. The kitchen beyond glowed with its harsh lights. Jen's humming carried faintly from the soda station. Nobody was there. I swallowed and kept mopping, but the footsteps started again. This time they matched my pace, following a half beat behind. When I slowed, they slowed. When I stopped, they stopped. The mop shook in my hands. My breath fogged faintly in the cold. I forced a laugh. It's just the water. Just echoes. But then I heard it. Breathing. Low and heavy right behind me. I spun, heart hammering. Still nothing. But the mop water rippled in the bucket, as if something had moved past it. I nearly bailed right there. But the thought of James chewing me out for leaving the hallway undone kept me going. I told myself I just finished fast. So I rushed, dragging the mop down the last stretch. And that's when I saw them. Footprints on the wet tile I just mopped. They were shoe prints. They were bare feet, long, narrow toes spread wide like a child's, each one pressed into the water, trailing droplets. And they didn't lead back toward the kitchen. They led forward, straight to the bathroom door. I froze. My heart thudded so loud, I swore the others could hear it from the kitchen. The footprints stopped at the base of the door. I waited, straining to hear something, anything on the other side, but the restaurant was silent, except for that faint hum of the lights. Finally, I forced myself forward. My hand shook as I knocked. Anyone in there? No answer. I turned the knob very easily and pushed the door open. The bathroom was empty. The footprints ended right inside, smeared faintly on the tile. There was nowhere else they could have gone. No window, no second floor. I stepped back, stomach churning. That's when I heard it again. Breathing. Not behind me this time. Above me. I looked up. The vent grate over the bathroom door rattled slightly, screws quivering in place. Something shifted inside, scraping metal, dragging itself deeper into the ducts. That was it for me. I bolted, sprinting down the hall so fast, the mop clattered to the floor. I nearly tripped over the bucket, water sloshing out behind me. When I burst into the kitchen, Jennifer jumped. "What's wrong with you?" I just shook my head, chest heaving, hands slick with sweat. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone. I finished the shift shaking, pretending to wipe counters while I listened to every creak and hum in that restaurant. When we finally clocked out, I didn't even wait for the others. I just rushed to my car and sped home. I quit a month later. But sometimes when I'm in that back hallway, the bleached shine of freshly mopped tile stretching out in front of me, the bare, wet footprints leading away, and that sound above me, the faint scrape of something crawling through the vents, waiting for me to look up too long. Most people think working fast food is just mindless labor. Fry the fries, flip the burgers, smile through the grease. What they don't realize is how different a restaurant feels at night. When the doors are locked, the customers are gone, and only the hum of the freezers and the buzz of the fluorescent lights keep you company. That's when you notice the empty spaces, the dark corners, the way sounds carry farther than they should. That's when you notice what's missing. And one night, what went missing was a coworker. His name was Eric. I'd worked with him long enough to know he wasn't the most reliable guy. He'd wander off during his shifts, take smoke breaks that stretched into 20 minutes, and half the time, he didn't bother clocking out for them. He was funny, good at lightening the mood when closing dragged. Even Jake, our short-tempered night manager, usually let it slide. That night, Eric showed up yawning, already tugging at the brim of his hat. "Let's get this over with," he said, grinning. We all laughed. It was just another slow Wednesday night. By midnight, the lobby was locked. The only business left was the drive-thru, and even that slowed to nothing after the bars closed. It was part of the shift where the kitchens went quiet, except for the fryer bubbling and the ice machine coughing every so often. And the smell of bleach drifted from where I was wiping the counters. "Gonna take my break," Eric announced suddenly, stretching his arms overhead. "Call me if you get slammed." Jake didn't even glance up from his paperwork. "15 minutes, don't push it." Eric gave me a little salute and headed toward the back hallway. That was the last time I saw him. At first, none of us thought anything about it. We got a little rush, 3 cars in a row, a bunch of late-night drunks who wanted chicken sandwiches and extra sauce. It kept us busy for about 20 minutes. When the rush died down, we all started wondering, where's Eric? Should be back by now. Probably outside smoking, I muttered, dumping fries into the warmer. He'll stroll by any minute. But another 10 minutes passed, then another. The drive-thru went dead, and the whole store felt still, like the air was holding its breath. And Eric never came back. "Hey, Jake," I finally said, poking my head into the office. "You know Eric's been gone almost an hour." Jake looked up from his computer, annoyed. "What? He's not back yet?" "Nope." He sighed and swiveled toward the security monitor. "Probably messing around. Let's see where he went." The grainy, black and white footage showed Eric walking down the back hallway toward the freezer. He pushed the door open and slipped inside. Then the feed glitched. Just a half second of static, like the film burned out. And when it came back, the freezer door was shut, and Eric was gone. "Glitch," Jake said quickly, rubbing his temple. "Cameras are garbage. He probably just went out the back exit after." But when he flipped the camera to the back exit, the door never opened. Eric never came out. We went in to check for ourselves. The freezer was massive, big enough to walk around in. Jake yanked the door open, and a wave of cold hit me so hard it stung my nose. We stepped inside, our shoes crunching on frost, rows of boxes lining the metal shelves. Frozen fries, burger patties, chicken nuggets, all stacked in identical brown cardboard cartons. The air hummed with the steady drone of the condenser. "Eric?" Jake called, his voice echoing strangely in the icy space. No answer. We checked every corner, even behind the boxes. Nothing. The only sound was the low, endless hum. When we came back out, I swear I felt colder than when I'd gone in, like the chill had followed me. Back in the kitchen, we tried to laugh it off. Maybe Eric had ditched. Maybe he got picked up by a friend. His car was still in the lot, but he'd done dumb stuff before. Then the first receipt printed. It slid out the little printer by the fryer with a mechanical whir. I grabbed it, automatically thinking it was a drive-thru order, but the headset hadn't beeped. No car had pulled up. "That's weird," I said. It was a full order. Burgers, fries, shake, paid in cash. And at the bottom, next to cashier ID, was Eric's name. Jake frowned. "System glitch. Ignore it." He crumpled it up and tossed it. But a few minutes later, another printed. Then another. Every order looked legitimate. Items, prices, totals. And everyone was tagged with Eric's ID. By 2 a.m., the printer was spinning non-stop. Receipts piling up on the counter. Nobody was punching them in. The drive-thru stayed empty. The lobby doors were locked. But Eric's name kept printing order after order. I stood there, staring at the stack, my stomach tightening. The paper curled and twisted, still warm to the touch, as though it had come straight from someone's hand. Jake yanked the plug, and the machine went silent. But for a long time after, I could still hear it in my head, the high-pitched whine, the rip of paper. We closed in silence, jumpy at every sound. When I went to mop the hallway, I refused to go near the freezer door. Eric's car was still in the lot when I left, dark and empty, a thin coat of dew forming on the windshield. The next morning, corporate sent their people. They checked the cameras, checked the freezer, checked the lot. Eric had simply vanished. The footage showed him going into the freezer, the glitch, and nothing after. The door never opened again. When I asked about the receipts, they brushed me off. System malfunction. Doesn't mean anything. But the pile of them was still there, curling on the counter, each stamped with Eric's name. I quit a few weeks later. Couldn't take being at that place at night anymore. But sometimes I drive past it when I'm out late, and I swear I can see it. Through the front window, the faint glow of the receipt printer in the dark, spitting out orders for customers who aren't there, and every one stamped with the same name. The name of the guy who never came back from his break. Most people don't realize how surreal it is to work nights in fast food. By day, it's chaos. Families cramming booths, teenagers yelling at each other, kids crying because they dropped their fries. But after midnight, the place feels like another world. The buzz of the soda machine sounds too loud. The fryers hiss like snakes. And every squeak of your shoes on the tile echoes back at you. It's easy to feel like you're the last person alive in the building, maybe even in the world. That's why when the health inspector showed up, I was relieved, at least at first. It was a Tuesday night, dead slow, no drive-through orders for over an hour, no cars in the parking lot, just me and Carla up front, restocking sauces and wiping down trays, and Leon in the back doing dishes. That's when the front door chimed. I froze, mop in hand, because the lobby was locked. After midnight it always was, but somehow the chime rang like someone had just walked in. I turned and there he was, a man in a crisp white shirt and tie, clipboard in hand. He had a little badge pinned to his pocket, a small logo I didn't recognize, but which looked official enough to make me stand straighter. "Evening," he said smoothly, with a polite little smile. "Health inspection shouldn't take too long." Carla raised her eyebrows at me. Before either of us could question it, he was already moving toward the kitchen. Normally, inspectors are a nightmare, clipboard slamming down, nitpicking every corner, barking about grease and dust. But this guy wasn't like that. He was nice. He checked the fryers, nodded approvingly, peeked under the counters, smiled, even complimented how spotless the soda nozzles looked. "Someone takes pride in their work," he said warmly, tapping his pen on the clipboard. It was so unusual that Carla and I actually joked with him, trying to lighten the mood. At one point I laughed and said, "Hey, if you want to just tell corporate we passed with flying colors, I'll buy you a shake." He chuckled. Tempting. For an hour he walked through the whole store, into the cooler, the freezer, even the supply closets. He scribbled neat notes, asked polite questions, and gave polite answers. When he finished, he stood in the lobby, shook our hands one by one, and said, "You'll do fine. You've got nothing to worry about." And then he left. The next morning I came in for my shift, still riding the weird relief that, for once, we didn't get slammed on a health inspection. But as soon as I mentioned it, my manager, Zach, gave me this sharp look. "What are you talking about?" "The inspection," I said. "Guy came last night, clipboard, badge, the whole deal. Said we were fine." He stared at me, stone-faced. "Don't joke about that. Inspections aren't a joke." "I'm not joking. Ask Carla. Ask Leon." He crossed his arms. "We don't have anything scheduled this month. Nobody should have been here." I blinked. Well, somebody was. Dressed the part, asked all the right questions, left around 1. He shook his head slowly. "No one's been sent here, trust me. Corporate notifies us weeks ahead." That's when the unease started to creep in. During my break, I asked Carla, "You remember that inspector, right?" She frowned, chewing her straw. "What inspector?" I laughed, waiting for the punchline, but she just looked at me blankly. "That guy last night?" I pressed. "White shirt, clipboard, badge. You joked with him, remember? You said he looked like your high school principal?" She blinked at me. "I never said that." Something in my stomach dropped. I cornered Leon later. He shook his head, swore up and down no inspector came in. He said all he did was the dishes, took out trash, went home. He hadn't even seen anyone walk through the kitchen. Now, I was rattled, because I knew what I'd seen. That night, I couldn't let it go. After close, while my manager was finishing his paperwork, I slipped into the office and pulled up the security footage. The cameras covered everything. The front lobby, the counter, the kitchen, even the cooler and freezer. I scrubbed to around midnight, heart pounding as I waited for the moment for that door to chime. The feed showed me mopping, Carla wiping down trays, and then the chime. I saw myself jolt, turn toward the door. But there was no one there. Just the door, shut and locked. Still on screen. I walked forward, smiling, nodding, talking to nothing. I watched myself gesture toward the fryer, then step aside like I was giving someone room to pass. On and on it went, me laughing, pointing, wiping my hands nervously on my apron like I was being inspected. But in the footage, there was no clipboard, no badge, no man at all. Just me, talking into empty air. I don't work there anymore. I couldn't. Every time the front door chimed after that, my blood went cold. Every time I turned to look, I expected to see him again. And sometimes, I swear I still do. In my apartment, in the grocery store, even in the reflection of bus windows. A man in a crisp white t-shirt, holding a clipboard, watching silently. Always polite, always smiling. And I'm terrified for the day he tells me, "You didn't pass." I worked closing shifts at the restaurant long enough that the weird hours don't bother me. 2 in the morning feels the same way as noon when you're stuck under fluorescent lights, wiping grease off trays, and listening to fryers hiss like snakes. But one night last winter, something happened that I still can't shake. I've gone over it 100 times in my head, wondering if I dreamed it, if stress warped my memory, if maybe I'm losing my mind. But every time I think I've convinced myself it wasn't real, I hear that sound, the little chirp of the receipt printer, and my stomach drops. That night was dead. Drive-thru was empty. Kayla was leaning against the wall with the headset on, scrolling her phone, and I was scrubbing ketchup stains off the counter for the 3rd time just to stay busy. That's when the door chimed. A guy walked in, mid-30s, maybe. Average build, plain jacket, baseball cap pulled low. He didn't look drunk or high, didn't stumble, didn't smell weird, just normal. He stepped up to the counter, handed me a 10 and said flat, 1 burger, fries, medium drink. The way he said it caught me off guard. Not rude, not friendly, just empty, like reading a grocery list out loud. I rang him up, dropped his change into his hand, and passed him the bag. He walked out. The door chimed again, and that was that. Or so I thought. 10 minutes later, I was restocking sauces when the printer chirped. I glanced over. Burger, fries, medium drink. I frowned. I hadn't touched the register. Kayla was busy bickering with some drunk guy over the headset. I checked the slip. Same order number as before, same time stamp pattern, except this one was 10 minutes later. The door chimed. I froze, paper still in my hand, and it was him. Same jacket, same cap, same order, except older, just slightly. His hairline was higher, with more gray showing around the edges. His skin looked looser, like he hadn't slept in weeks. I hesitated when I handed him his food, and his fingers brushed mine. They were cold, damp even. He walked out without a word. Then, the printer chirped again. Same order, and when I looked up, he was already walking in. This time there was no mistaking it. He was older again, 5, maybe 10 years. Wrinkles carved around his mouth. His jacket seemed too big for him now. His shoulder slumping forward. His voice cracked slightly when he said, 1 burger, fries, medium drink. I rang it up, heart pounding. Kayla didn't even look up from the drive-thru. When he took the bag, he gripped it with both hands like it was heavy. And when he left, I swear his reflection in the glass looked older than he did in person. Then, the printer chirped again and I jumped. Another receipt curled out, identical to the last 3. I didn't want to look at the door, but the chimes forced my eyes. It was him. Now his hair was mostly gray, his cheeks sunken, his lips cracked like dry clay. He shuffled to the counter, shoes scraping the tile. His hands shook as he held out the cash. I tried to ask, "Hey, are you okay?" He didn't answer, didn't blink, just repeated, "Burger, fries, medium drink." His voice rasped, papery. I bagged it up with trembling hands and slid it across. When he turned, I saw how his back hunched, how his knees wobbled. By the time the door chimed again, he was gone. I'd stopped checking the printer. The sound alone made my stomach twist. But sure enough, when the slip curled out, it was the same. Always the same. He came in slower this time. His skin hung loose on his bones. Liver spots speckled his hands as he slid the money forward with brittle fingers. He had to lean on the counter for support, his breath shallow and wheezy. And when I gave him the bag, his hand trembled so badly, I thought he'd drop it. I wanted to stop him, to scream, to grab his shoulders and shake him, and demand to know what was happening. But I couldn't, because his eyes, cloudy, milky with age, looked straight through me, like I wasn't even there. This time, the printer didn't even chirp. I heard the door first. When I looked up, my chest locked. He was ancient now, hair pure white, skin paper thin, his movements jerky and weak. His clothes sagged off his skeleton frame. One lips moved like he had to remind himself how. 1 burger, fries, and drink. The words rattled out of him like they were tearing his throat. I could barely breathe as I handed him the food. For the first time, he looked at me, really looked at me, and his eyes were full of terror. Not mine, his own. Like he was just trapped in this loop as I was. The door chimed, one last time. He didn't need the receipt to know what was coming. He staggered inside, barely holding himself upright. His body looked ready to collapse in on itself. I rushed around the counter, reaching for him before he could fall. He grabbed my wrist with what little strength he had left. His skin was icy. His lips trembled as he whispered, breath rattling against my cheek, "Don't let me order again. Please." Then he crumpled in my arms. The bag of food hit the floor, fries spilling across the tile. When I blinked, I was standing alone in the empty lobby. No man, no bag, no fries on the floor. Just the sound of the soda machine burping behind me. The cameras the next morning showed nothing out of the ordinary. No man, no orders. Just me smiling and bagging invisible meals, setting them carefully on the counter and talking to thin air. Corporate called it stress. Kayla laughed it off, said I must have been overtired. But I know what I saw. And sometimes when I'm alone at night and the receipt printer chirps unexpectedly, I don't even look anymore because I'm terrified the order's not going to be his this time. It'll be mine. When I first got hired on overnights, I thought the worst part would be the loneliness, the silence of the restaurant after midnight, the sticky floors reflecting the buzzing fluorescent lights, the way even time itself seemed to crawl slower than usual. I thought the solitude would drive me nuts, but I was wrong. Loneliness isn't the worst thing that can happen to you here. I remember it like it was yesterday, because in a way it still is yesterday. I came in for my overnight shift at 11 p.m. just like I always did. The air outside was damp and chilly, and a fog hung low across the empty parking lot, thick enough to make the glowing drive-through sign look like a ghost floating in the mist. The doors hissed open when I pushed them, and the familiar scent of fryer grease and mop water hit me in the face. Inside, everything was exactly as it should have been. James was scrubbing down the front counter, muttering under his breath about the late-night rush. Miguel was restocking sauces and grumbling about being scheduled for another overnight. The kitchen hummed the way it always did, fryers hissing, soda machine gurgling, the constant mechanical drone of the ventilation system. It was just another long night at the same dead-end job. The first few hours were uneventful. A couple drunk college kids came through the drive-thru, shouting their order in slurred voices, laughing so hard I could barely understand them. A trucker rolled through around 3 a.m., asking for extra coffee, his tired eyes barely visible under the brim of his cap. Every order was routine. Every action was second nature. Drop fries, salt them, wrap burgers, swipe cards, make change. My brain went on autopilot, the way it always did on long overnights. Eventually, the clock on the wall ticked towards 7 a.m. My body ached. My eyes burned from staring at the greasy tile floors for hours, but I was relieved. I punched out, heard the card snap against the time clock, and brushed through the glass doors into the foggy parking lot. The sun hadn't quite risen, but a dull gray light pressed against the mist, just enough to paint a lot in the pale shadows. That's when I noticed something strange. The fog was thicker than before, so thick I couldn't even see the street, just the idling silhouette of a car at the end of the lot. I don't remember seeing anyone inside it, but I figured it was just someone catching a nap after a long night out. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and squinted at the screen. Monday, 7:02. That made sense, except hadn't yesterday been Monday too? I shook it off, convinced myself I was just overtired. I headed for my car, digging for my keys, except my car wasn't there. I stood in the middle of the lot, turning in circles, scanning every spot. Nothing. My space was empty. I felt a cold shiver run down my arms. Before I could think too hard about it, my phone buzzed again. A text from my manager. "Don't forget your shift tonight, 11 p.m. I frowned, confused. I just finished my shift. I was supposed to be done until tomorrow night. When I looked up, the fog seemed to move, almost like it was curling around me. My stomach dropped when I realized I was standing right back in front of the restaurant doors. They slid open with a hiss before I even touched them. Inside, the clock on the wall read 11 p.m. I told myself it was just exhaustion. Maybe I dozed off and dreamed the whole morning walkout. But as soon as I walked in, James was at the counter again, scrubbing and muttering the exact same words he had before. Miguel was restocking sauces in the same order. The air smelled the same, down to the faint metallic tang of burnt oil. The drunk kids rolled through the drive-thru around the same time, laughing the same dumb joke. The trucker showed up again at 3 a.m. for the same coffee in the same tone. I tried to brush it off as déjà vu, but by the time I clocked out again at 7 a.m., dread filled my chest. I pushed outside, praying the sun would finally be up, but the fog was there again. The same car idled in the same spot. My phone buzzed at the same time. Don't forget your shift tonight, 11 p.m. When I blinked, the doors were in front of me again. The clock read 11 p.m. That's when the panic really set in. I stopped pretending to work after that. I didn't care if anyone noticed. I just watched. I watched as every moment played out exactly the same. James dropped a tray of nuggets right on cue. Miguel swore when the ketchup packets jammed in the dispenser. The drunk kids ordered, laughed, left. The trucker sipped his coffee, everything identical, down to the smallest detail. I tried to warn them. I asked James if he remembered last night, if he noticed how things were repeating. He just gave me a flat look and kept muttering the same lines I'd already heard. Miguel didn't even acknowledge me. It was like they couldn't hear me. I tried leaving before my shift ended, bolting for the parking lot. The fog swallowed me whole. No matter how far I ran, the restaurant was always in front of me again, the doors hissing open, the clock frozen at 11 p.m. By what I think was the third or fourth loop, things started to break. Customers' faces weren't right anymore. The drunk kids' mouths stretched too wide when they laughed, their teeth sharp and gleaming under the fluorescent light. The trucker's eyes bulged too far and never blinking, his grin plastered stiff across his face. Even James' voice started skipping, looping the same word again and again, like a broken record, until it snapped back into place. The food rotted in front of me. Fries came out dripping blood instead of grease. Burgers oozed a black slime when I wrapped them. The receipt printer started spitting out slips covered in strange symbols, marks that looked like they'd been burned into the paper. One slip came out with my name on it. The order was simple. 1 shift, 8 hours. My hands trembled as I held it. The ink smeared onto my skin like oil, staining my palms. The customers stopped pretending entirely after that. They sat in the booths, motionless, all their heads turning toward me as I moved. Their lips whispered in unison, too soft to hear, but I felt their words scraping against the inside of my skull. When the printer chirped again, I forced myself to look. The slip uncurled slowly, and in block letters it read, "Order up, order up, order up." I dropped it, heart pounding, and when I turned, every customer was standing, blocking the doors, their mouths wide open, chanting in that same broken unison, "Order up, order up, order up." I don't know how many loops I've lived through now. My body feels weaker, thinner. My reflection in the fryer glass is hollow-eyed, pale, unrecognizable. I don't remember the last time I ate. I don't remember the last time I actually slept. The calendar on my phone never changes. It's always Monday. Always the same buzz at 7 a.m. Always the same text from my manager. "Don't forget your shift tonight, 11 p.m. I don't even fight it anymore. I just clock in, run the shift, clock out, and wait for it all to reset. Because there's no way out. The slips keep printing with my name on them. 1 shift, 8 hours, forever. I've been working at this fast food place long enough to know the quirks of the machines better than any of my own family's voices. The fryer beeps when it's actually empty. The ice cream machine's compressor whines just before it dies on you, and the order screen, the big digital one in the kitchen that lists every drive-thru and front counter order, always lags about 3 seconds. None of it surprised me anymore. At least, not until last month. It was a dead weekday night, one of those shifts where you stare at the glowing bulbs in the parking lot and wonder if the town itself has gone to sleep. The screen was blank for a while, the humming of the soda machine, the loudest sound in the place. I leaned against the counter, zoning out, when the first glitch appeared. The screen flickered just once like a bad connection. Then instead of order 49, 2 burgers, 1 fry, the words scrambled, letters slid sideways, numbers stretched and folded. I thought maybe the connection to the front registers was loose, but then the text reformed crisp and clear. "Hello," and my name. I froze. Nobody in the store knew my full name. Not like that. On the schedule, it's just first names. The order system definitely should know it. Yet there it was, glowing in the kitchen light. I called out to my coworker at the front, asking if she saw anything weird on her screen. She shook her head, said hers was normal. I stared back at the screen until it flickered again. This time, The letters scrolled line by line. Age 27, height 5'10", lives on, my street name. Nearly dropped the fry screw. It was telling me, reading me, like an order. The screen beeped once, like a completed ticket. Then it cleared, leaving just a normal order, number 50, chicken sandwich. My coworker rang it up without a second thought. I stood there, heart hammering, not sure if I'd imagined it. But the screen didn't stop. Over the next hour, every few orders would scramble and spit out something personal. Childhood memories, mistakes I never told anyone, lines of text like, remember the cat you found dead in 2009? You lied about how it died. Or, you cried in your car after work last week. No one heard, but we did. That we burned into my brain. I asked my coworker again if her screen was showing glitches, but she just rolled her eyes. You're just tired, she said. Go splash some water on your face. I did. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, breathing hard, telling myself it was just stress. The overnight shifts blurred together. Maybe I was hallucinating. But when I came back out, the screen chirped again. Letters scrolled lower this time. Deliberate. Check the freezer. I didn't want to. But my body moved on its own, feet dragging across the greasy tiles until I was yanking open the freezer door. Cold air blew out, fogging the lights. Everything looked normal. Boxes of frozen patties, bags of fries stacked on metal racks. I was about to slam it shut and curse myself for listening to a machine when I saw it. On the bottom shelf, tucked behind a box of chicken strips, was a small, black device, no bigger than a walkie-talkie, with a blinking red light. I crouched and picked it up. No labels, no buttons, just that pulsing light. The order screen beeped behind me. I turned and squinted at it through the frost. Put it back. I nearly dropped the thing. My breath fogged in front of me as I stumbled backward, tossing it onto the shelf and slamming the freezer shut. My chest hurt from how fast my heart was pounding. When I turned back, the screen displayed one final line before clearing to normal again. Good. Now we know you'll listen. After that night, I thought about quitting. But every time I tried to draft a resignation, my phone buzzed with an unknown number, texting me lines I hadn't told anyone, things I'd done, things I'd thought, the same style of text as the screen. I kept working. What else was I supposed to do? Bills don't pay themselves. Weeks passed, and the glitches got worse. Some nights the screen showed my search history. Others, it listed the exact words of arguments I'd had in private. Once, it showed me a detailed description of the inside of my bedroom, the arrangement of clothes on the chair, the book on the nightstand. Then 2 nights ago, the screen scrolled a new message. Order in progress. Do not interrupt. Nothing else came in. No food orders, no receipts, no cars in the drive-thru. Just that line flashing over and over. The beeping growing louder, until I thought my eardrums would burst. My coworker swore she heard nothing. She just kept scrubbing under the counter like nothing was happening. Finally, after what felt like an hour, the screen dinged. The words cleared. Order complete. Now pick up. And then the printer in the back spat out a receipt. Just one. I grabbed it with trembling hands. There was no food listed, just a name. Mine. The timestamp read 3:06 a.m., the exact time I was holding it. I don't know what happens when an order like that is ready for pickup, but I've started feeling watched, not just in the store, at home too. Lights flickering, shadows bending in the corners, my phone buzzing with that same text. Order up. I haven't slept in 2 days, and tonight's another shift. I know. The screen is waiting.